Okay, is there anything further that we need to deal with before
This case is about an officer who knew not to get it dead wrong, but she failed to get it right. This case is about the defendant, Kimberly Potter, betraying her badge and betraying her oath and betraying her position of public trust. And on April 11th of this year, she betrayed a 20-year-old kid. She pulled out her firearm, she pointed it at his chest, and she shot and killed Daunte Wright. So Officer Luckey and Sergeant Johnson continued to engage. Now at that point, the defendant approached the vehicle behind Officer Luckey. She intervened and she interfered. Officer Luckey was her trainee and she was the FTO. So she was the one who determined how this stop would go. She was the 26-year veteran. She was the officer in charge. And it was her job to show Officer Luckey how it's done. And what did she show him? She showed him how to kill someone. And when she pulls that trigger, she fires directly under Officer Luckey's face, with Officer Luckey's arm reaching over the top of where her gun is. When she pulls that trigger, Daunte Wright is in the driver's seat of that car. He has his foot off and on the brake, and the car is running on a busy street in the middle of the day. She did all this despite her training. She had been trained year after year after year to prevent this kind of thing from happening, but she did it anyway. But intent is not an element of any of the charges at issue here, and it's not something that the state will have to prove. That the defendant didn't intend to kill Mr. Wright or that she didn't mean to shoot him with her gun, if you hear those things, they have nothing to do with the charges at hand. These officers have the responsibility to be mindful and attentive and acutely aware of the weapons that they carry and the risks associated with those weapons. They have the responsibility to follow their duty and their training when it comes to those weapons, and they have the responsibility to carry those weapons and use those weapons appropriately. We trust them not to use those weapons rashly or recklessly, and we expect not to be shot dead on the street for no reason. We expect them not to betray their badge, and we expect them to uphold their oath. We trust them to know wrong from right and left from right.
Members of the jury, she said, "I'll tase you. I'll tase you." The language was direct, it was clear, it was unmistakable. And all Mr. Wright had to do was stop. He was told he was arrested on a warrant. He resisted. She said, "I'll tase you." And all he had to do was surrender. So when she says, "Taser, taser, taser," there's one last pause. The facts will show you. Mr. Wright can stop. All he has to do is stop, and he'd be with us. But he goes. She can't let him leave because he's going to kill her partner. And so she does taser, 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 and she pulls the trigger believing that it was a taser. For why else would she say it? She made a mistake. This was an accident. She's a human being. But she had to do what she had to do to prevent a death to a fellow officer, too. And over the course of 26 years, she never fired a gun. She never fired one shot. She never fired her taser. She never had to. She was good at de-escalating everything, and here that's what she's trying to do. So Luckey goes back to the car and says, they have a conversation here. And the conclusion he drew was that he had to be arrested on the warrant. A court of law directed him to arrest him. It has nothing to do with a license tab. It has to do with a court order from this district.